For those who may not know me, my name is David Homer. Um, I have been in clinical practice in naturopathic medicine for 25 years. I've retired from clinical practice, but I'm still very much in the health and wellness space, but more from a different perspective. I call it a biopsychospiritual approach and perspective of how I work with people today. I do it um, not for profit. I do it just out of the pleasure of helping people. And my passion is to see human beings experience their best life as I make that journey myself. I promote a concept called whole living, and it's about cultivating our most authentic self. Um, Personal wholeness is indeed a complete state of being that expresses a personality that is shaped by a character, refined by truth and molded in love. And the entire approach, which looks at every aspect of our life, this is where it takes us to. This evening, we're going to be looking at our topic is going to be the truth about health, healing, and human potential. I want to encourage you to really be listen intently, take some notes to connect the dots, because some things you're going to hear that would be familiar, some things may not be familiar, or some things may be familiar but not quite clear. And with the short time that we do have together, we won't be able to go into the dynamics of it all. We do have workshops, and some which will be upcoming in the near future, that unfolds these dynamics and principles. But this is our topic for this evening. Within the context of whole living, we're going to be looking at the truth about health, healing, and human potential. And the direction we're going to go in, what will launch us into that direction is this statement that was made by Thomas Edison back in the 1800s, which is a very insightful statement. He said, "The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease." I want to highlight these two areas that once we can understand the cause and the prevention of disease, we will also recognize that we can heal and recover without medicine. And when I say medicine, I am particularly referring to the general approaches that exist today within the healthcare system. And please don't get me wrong, I am not knocking the system, but because we do need it, it will save our life, but it will not make us healthy. It will not restore our health, nor will it prevent us from becoming sick. It is a system of healthcare, which is really not an appropriate name, but it is a system of healthcare that can only function if people are getting sick. The way the system is structured, the wheels and the cogs of that system will only turn if sickness is happening. So you can't take a system that relies on illness in order for it to work and use that same system to reduce the incidences of illnesses, particularly chronic lifestyle diseases. And so while it does have its place and it may save our lives, it has not served mankind optimally. And so we're going to be looking at the cause and the prevention of disease that can afford us to be able to live a healthy, disease-free life. And if we are sick, if we do have a chronic lifestyle disease, I want you to know that you can recover from it. I am not just speaking as someone coming from the perspective of clinical practice. I'm speaking also from someone who suffered with numerous conditions in the past and lived on multiple medications, which I was told I would have to live on for the rest of my life. Today, I no longer have those conditions, nor do I take any medications. So I'm also speaking from the perspective of experience. And so I can say to you without any reservation that it doesn't matter what the name of the condition is called. It is not whether you can get rid of it. There are absolutely no incurable conditions. I don't care what you call it. There are incurable people, not conditions. People who will not, for whatever reason, engage the processes that they may have to in order to bring themselves to that place. And so let us unfold this and let's see how we can connect the dots and put the pieces together. The first thing we have to understand is what true health really is. We've been taught to think that health is about how our body feels and how it functions. That is a very finite perspective on it. Using the World Health Organization definition, it gives us a little bit of a broader and a more real and more true definition, though not altogether complete. But the World Health Organization says that health is a state of complete physical, mental, spiritual, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. I inserted the word spiritual there because it's not complete without that. And so what I want us to get from this is that health is not the absence of disease or infirmity. And in my years in the clinic, the general perspective that is taught to us is that if we don't feel sick, and I've heard so many people make this remark, once we don't feel sick, we think that we're healthy. As long as there are no symptoms, we think that we are in a state of health and everything is okay. That is so far from what is true. We need to think of it as not what is absent, but what is present. And what is present is a state of being. So that is the first thing I want us to get. It is a state. And that state is complete, encompassing every dimension of our lives. It is everything to do with our physical well-being, our mental and emotional well-being, our spiritual well-being, and our social well-being. Every aspect of our life, collectively, inseparably, is what constitutes what true health really is. And it's the presence of that wholeness as a state of being. State of being meaning how we are based on who we are. And that's very important. And we really need to capture and broaden our perspective and understanding of what health really is. Because if we don't, as we continue to go down the journey of life, we will end up like the progressing statistics of people who develop chronic lifestyle disease. And we are likely to think that it's normal, just a normal part of aging. And that's also completely false. We don't have to be sick. But there are reasons why it is so common that we think it is normal. And so we want to shift and we want to be able to change that paradigm because we are living in a time where we have the capacity, we have the wherewithal, we have the understanding that can help us to do that. So when we look at our lives and we think about health, henceforth, we should be thinking about the spiritual well-being, our mental, emotional, and physical well-being, and our social well-being. You could screenshot this because this could take us down where we could get into a lot of discussion. But please understand that when we look at our life, health is about our entire life. So if we want our life to flourish, we need to cultivate health because improving health, cultivating health is the most significant investment we could ever make. Why? Because every area of our life stands on it. Every area of life stands on health. And what we need to understand from this is that all the areas of our life, they are seamlessly interconnected. If we are failing in one area, and we really step back and take a look, we're also going to be affected in every other area of life. And so true health is the full expression of life that's rooted in a clear awareness of how we see ourselves. This is really important. I want us to really get a handle and contemplate and consider this even after the presentation as we go on with life, that when we look at health, we must look at our whole life. We are out there every day chasing life. We want a better quality of life. We want a better standard of living, and we deserve it. And it really is our birthright. And that's why we deserve to have it. However, we need to understand how it works. Our personal well being, our state of being, which constitute health, making up our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual lives, which is in that context, our state of being, our sense of who we are, that entirely determines how we are going to interconnect with the social framework of life, our relationships, and how we interact with other people. This is very important because that is where the rubber meets the road. Our relationships with other people as we interact in the world is going to be the bridge that helps us to be able to have a correct state of being or a faulty state of being. Because there's nothing more than other human beings that will push our buttons, good, bad, or indifferent, to help us to cultivate the right state of being or to go in the wrong direction. Other humans will help us to either be on track or be off track. And all that I want us to really gather from this is that when we have cultivated, when we have learned to cultivate our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being where it can be harmonious and in balance and in order, our interactions with people will be superb in a way that it's not very evident today. And as a result, because we live in a material world that is entirely undergirded by economics, we will also see that the bonus of it is that financial empowerment becomes part of the deal. Now, that you're not going to see this evening because that's another discussion, but the very same process takes us to where we don't need to be chasing financial security like the world is doing today. There's a simple way how it can come to us, the same way how healing comes to us. That's a conversation for another time. But for now, health really is the wholeness of our lives, every dimension together. And once we can do this, once we can learn how to cultivate this, once we can put the pieces together, we can truly live a disease-free life and we can overcome any condition that is there. But because we hold to a mindset that we have been conditioned to think about health, we are faced with now a growing global epidemic where chronic lifestyle diseases are on the rampage, getting higher. The World Health Organization calls it the global burden of disease, and their website has projections to the next coming decade that the statistics are going to get worse. We don't have to be part of that, but it's going to continue to happen despite our advancements in technology, understanding, know-how, and our medical advancement. Yet it will get worse because we are approaching it from a perspective and an understanding that is, if I'm to be blunt, it is really governed by economics and politics. And so this is about personal responsibility. But what I want us to get is that chronic lifestyle diseases is not the problem and it ought not to be the focus. We will focus on it because the whole system focuses on it, and we are taught to think that we are victims of disease, that we're going through life minding our business, happy-go-lucky, and all of a sudden we get a diagnosis one day of a condition. We are not victims of disease. We help to cultivate it. Knowing or unknowingly, we help to cultivate it. Disease doesn't happen to us. It really happens through us. And so does healing happen through us as well. and that will become clear. But we don't want to be part of these statistics because there's nothing that takes more lives on this planet than chronic lifestyle diseases. 74% of global deaths, 15 million people a year. This is a far greater pandemic, if you want to call it that, than COVID was. COVID did 20 million in 2 years. This is 50 million in 1 year, and we don't think anything of it because we need to change our perspective. We need to shift our paradigm. We need to shift our mindsets, and we need to up level it because health is about our whole lives. Today, we are seeing an increase in mental disorders, cognitive declines, dementias, Alzheimer's. We are seeing mental declines in ways that we have never seen before. Why is that important? Because our minds is what helps us to navigate this life effectively or not. And so not only physically are we becoming more defective and seeing the results of it, but mentally it's happening in greater record numbers than it has ever happened before. We need to shift. We need to change. And so it's not just about overcoming illness and living a more proactive and preventive life, but the extension of that is we become more effective in every other area of our lives because it is one whole life. It's like a tree with different branches. And we can be fruitful in all branches if the root is well nourished. And that's what we want to look at, nourishing the root. Now, we want to move away from this and we don't want to be part of the statistics. And so how can we do that? Because healing is inherent to our design. Healing is a natural part of the human makeup. It's not something that we have to activate in our body. It's something we have to allow to happen. Why? Because it's naturally built in. Healing is the divine flow of life that's woven into the fabric of human design. When that flow comes into full alignment with divine order, something called spontaneous healing occurs. Now, I want you, if you're not familiar with it, to really look up spontaneous healing. The research, all the medical and research data that's out there of tens of thousands of cases around the world, there's no question about how real this is or not. Now, the sciences of psychoneuroimmunology, epigenetics, quantum biology, and so on, they all validate and they all make clear that the human being is capable of self-healing. We know that because we see our cuts heal. We know that our bones mend back. The doctors will just set it and eventually it mends back on its own. We know that when we cut our hair, it's going to grow back. We know that there is this force of life that's causing our hearts to beat. And we breathe and we're able to live. And what's going on in the inside, though many of us may not know or be familiar with the intricacies of what's going on inside. If we were to peer into there and take a look, we would know that there's something far greater than just biology happening here. But we know that through the data that the human being is capable of healing itself. So, and that's from any condition. Spontaneous healing, the records show that people that have incurable conditions and terminal conditions completely recover without any medical interventions, be it natural or conventional, but without going through any specific form of treatment, they recover completely. And we're talking about life-threatening, terminal conditions of which there is no medical cure. The people completely recover. All the data is out there, and a good book that you can look at if you want to check it out is a book called Cured by Dr. Jeffrey Ridiger. That book, he outlines after 20 years of just researching what is the elements, what actually is the science, what's happening inside that actually makes this thing happen. Now, mainstream medicine is not going to go here. Mainstream medicine don't even acknowledge the placebo effect as being something positive. Although the placebo effect is also well documented in the National Library of Medicine, and all the data is there that the mind will heal the body. But it's kind of downplayed and treated as a negative within the medical establishment as, oh, it's all in your mind. Absolutely, it's all in our minds. But our mind is capable of regenerating and healing our body. We possess a capacity within us, and it's woven in to our design. We do not need to know how to activate it, how to stimulate it. It's not something that has to be induced. It just has to be allowed to flow because it's inherent to our design. Once we understand how this works, and I'm going to help us to get perhaps to get a little bit handle on it, we will see that we need to really broaden our view and not think of health as how our body feels and function only, but when everything is aligned, absolutely our body's going to feel and function great. But more than that, there's an understanding that precedes that before we get to that place. And so this infographic will help us in terms of understanding, in terms of the essence of our state of being. We have to understand that being precedes doing. Why is that important? Because we are conditioned to think of it the other way around. That we are to do, and the more we do, the more we have to do in order for things to get better. But that's how we've been taught to view life. I want to just give an understanding and a perspective for us to see what's really happening without getting deep into this. We are three-dimensional beings. Pretty much most people accept that, although we may not necessarily understand how it all connects, but we understand we are three-dimensional beings. The very source of our being, or the very source of our life, the very essence of our being, really is spiritual. And the creative order of flow is from spirit, soul, and body. The very thing and we know that spirit is real. Why? Because we have a body that is so marvelous that how it is formed in the womb. Medicine knows what's going on. We just don't understand what's driving the intelligence that's driving this process. We don't understand how the energy that forms the bones and the brain and everything in the womb, that energy capacity, when they measure it at the quantum level, it's stronger than nuclear energy. Today, we look into the human body and we can see that there's rhythms to the body. There's cells that's replicating and regenerating. Every millisecond, there are millions of cells replicating. There's so much movement, so much activity, so much synchronicity going on inside the body. There's a circadian rhythm. We are breathing, our heart is beating, and that the intelligence that built this whole system, that runs this whole system and sustains it, it cannot be found anywhere in the body, not even in the DNA. The DNA may give transcriptions of how the cells must function and how they replicate, but the DNA itself regenerates, and medicine says it's self-regenerative. We don't know how it's able to do it. There's an intelligence that's driving the whole process. I just want us to understand, without getting deep into it, that this is what's driving it. It's the very source of life that is our essence of being. It's the essence of our true self, which is spirit. This light of spirit, when that flows via consciousness and it configures the heart, which is the seat of the soul, which regulates the mind and flows into the body, we have homeostasis. We have balance. We have harmony. We have synchronicity. We have synchrony. We have synergy. We have a symphony going on inside here, an orchestra with all that is such harmony. That's what's happening in here. However, and what disease is, disease simply is when this light of spirit is unable to flow through freely, and it gets blocked up right here. It gets blocked right here in the middle. You see, as spiritual beings, spontaneous healing being woven into our very fabric of our being, and when our sense of identity, which is here, when it's anchored in the awareness of our true essence of being, this flows freely. Now, if this is unable, if the light of spirit gets blocked right here, it'll cast a shadow here. That shadow is disease. That shadow is dysfunction. That shadow is what becomes defects. That shadow is what becomes chronic lifestyle diseases. The problem is not the body. It's just a shadow that's casted from here because the light, the very thing that runs and orchestrates everything, is not able to flow through. How does that happen? Well, you see, the heart, the soul, the heart, the emotions, the mind, thoughts, beliefs, perceptions, etc. The soul is where we navigate life. This is where we experience what life is. We are experiencing life on the inside, not on the outside. It's felt and it's experienced on the inside. When that experience is defined by the qualia of spirits, the expressions of what spirit is, when that defines this position, it flows all the way through. But if it's blocked here because thoughts, emotions, beliefs, if our quality of life, our state of identity, the sense of who we are, our self-awareness, if this, our soul, our center of being, if it's being defined from the other side, from our physical senses, when our sensory perceptions is what defines the state of mind, which conditions the heart, and because the heart cannot influence the spirit, it creates a block here, which is why most of us acknowledge that we may be spiritual beings, but we cannot access it experientially because it's blocked. But when our thoughts and emotions, what's defining the experience of our life, if it comes from the outside in, which is against the natural flow, it creates a tension right here in the soul. This is where the problem is at. This is where we have to work. The tension is created right here because the order of the flow of life is inverted. When we lack that existential awareness of our spiritual nature, being becomes replaced by doing. And doing is what defines our lifestyle. And this is how we are conditioned from the very beginning. From birth, we are conditioned this way. In fact, it even starts happening from in the womb. And so life is driven by performance, appearance, achievements. It is shaped by a sense of identity that is socially conditioned. And so our sense of worth, our sense of value is based on achievements. It is based on how we are accepted. It's based on being seen, being recognized, being appreciated. Our sense of well-being, whether life is wonderful, stress-free, whether life is full of gratitude, whether life is governed by joy and peace, whatever quality it is, for most of us, it's determined by what's happening in our external environment. If circumstances are fine, life is good. If people don't treat us a particular way or circumstances don't go a particular way, it determines our sense of well-being. And that's because our sense of identity is determined from the outside. We have an opposing flow. The flow of life is against the natural creative order. And life becomes a struggle. But I want us to understand, I don't want to get too deep into this, but I just want us to understand this is where the problem arises. You see, when life flows from the inside out, when our sense of well-being, when our sense of identity, which determines our state of being, because health is what? A state of complete being, not doing. But we are conditioned that if we want life to be better, we got to do more, we got to do more, we got to do more. But life actually works a better way. That when it flows from being, which has to precede doing, doing becomes a whole lot less to achieve a whole lot more. Life just works better when it flows from the inside out. But when it flows from the outside in, and we create this tension right here in the center of our being, when living is externally driven, by that egocentric identity. The tension that inevitably arises in our soul is the syndrome that we have come to know today as stress. This is something we have to be very mindful of because we are now treating stress like chronic lifestyle disease where we can only manage it and control it. Now we want to manage and control stress like it is a disease now all in and of itself. And it's just a tension that arises within our soul, which psychologists tell us that stress is really an internal thing that's based on our state of mind and being. It's a whole psychological dilemma that's going on inside. It is that tension, but the tension is because there's a conflict between our two states of being, our two natures. But this is where the veil comes up, right in the center. And so the light of spirit gets blocked. It's like you can't stop it because this is the essence of our being. This is what's animating and moving and creating our aliveness. But think of it like the sun. A cloud can come and it can block the light and it doesn't flow through. But you can't stop it. This light always flows. We always have life, but that life can get diminished when the wrong thought patterns, the wrong state of mind, the wrong emotional responses, the state of being that becomes created here becomes like a cloud that blocks the light and casts a shadow. And that's what illness is. This we have to clear up. When we get our minds and our hearts aligned with the true qualia of spirit, that's what spontaneous healing is. And so we can do that. We can learn to do that. We can learn to cultivate that. Why? Because it's already built in. We don't have to know how to find it. It's already there. The truth of it resonates with us. When we just hear the truth of it, something resonates with us inside. But it's a process of renewal that we all have to go through. So stress is the number one driver of physical and mental dysfunction when it comes to the condition of the body. Between 60 to 80% of people in modern societies live in a chronic state or recurring state of stress. That's the World Health Organization and other major global bodies that says this. Up to 90% of doctor visits are stress related. Stress is the basic cause of 75 to 90% of all human illnesses and disease. Over 90% of disease is caused by stress, thoughts, and belief. That's epigenetics. That's research that's showing us this. Chronic stress increases the odds of developing Alzheimer's by 145%. We are seeing mental and physical decline because of this condition that is this syndrome. We call it stress. And people now are compartmentalizing stress into this type of stress and that type of stress. But it really is, stress really is spiritual dysfunction, spiritual disconnection. That's really, it's a deficiency. See, illness in our bodies is an imbalance that's happening in our soul. Stress is an imbalance that's happening between the soul and the spirit, our true essence of being. We are just not familiar with, because it's not been taught to us sufficiently for us to understand how we can actually engage the spiritual dimensions of our being. And when I say spiritual, I'm not talking about some mystical, abstract thing. I'm talking about a very functional part of who we are. It is the very thing that gives us life, animates this body, and gives the body function. The body between the body and spirit is a bio-spiritual interface that is bridged by the soul. And that is where we want to pay our attention. So what stress looks like on the inside is this inner tension. It really comes down from our sense of who we are, our state of being, which is determined by our sense of identity, the awareness of who we think that we are, or our sense of ourselves. Many people do not really pay attention to this because a lot of us just live life on autopilot. But here's an example of when we are not true to ourselves, which is the result of this fractured way of living. It is a fractured way of living that arises because we are not clear on our sense of identity. Who we are, who we think we are, which has been conditioned by the world, that egoic sense of identity, which we live by unconsciously for the most part, when that becomes what governs our minds and our hearts, there will always be a conflict or a tension in the soul. Why? Because it's simply contrary to the natural order of how we are designed to function. And that's putting it simply. But this is what it looks like, and we all can identify with this. But once this is what's happening, and once we can identify with these things, this is where the rubber meets the road, because this is what the inner tension, this conflict on the inside. It is privately experiencing life one way, but publicly pretending it's another. You know, we do that. It's presenting confidence while still concerned of others' opinions about us. It is judging others for improper behaviors while excusing our own. It is saying we value the truth, yet not be honest with ourselves and others. It is recognizing the value of health, yet willfully choosing unhealthy habits. It's wanting to love ourselves while betraying our self-worth values. It is thinking or feeling one way, but saying or doing something else. When we interact with people, we're doing this all the time. It is when our inner well-being is defined by outer circumstances. Stress does not arise from external circumstances, because we hear it every day. Distress, life is stressful. Life is becoming stressful. We project everything externally. Why? Because our sense of identity is based externally. So it is the bills, it is the finances, it is the job, it is the way people are treating us, it is the traffic I have to deal with. Life is just stressful. Life is not. Life is life. Life is happening as it's supposed to happen based on law. Divine law governs everything. Stress don't arise from these circumstances. It arises from how we interpret and react to them, shaped by the internal framework of our mindsets, which is rooted in an unstable sense of self. This is the root of stress. I'm taking us to see what is really the solution, how we can overcome this. Because spontaneous healing is natural to us. We don't need to know how to make the body heal. We need to know how to be aligned. We need to know how to allow it to just flow by moving the resistance. Who we believe ourselves to be becomes the filter through which we experience reality. However we may be experiencing life, good, bad, or indifference, is based on how we are interpreting it, based on the lens that we are looking through. And that lens is who we think ourselves to be. It's a state of being. When our inner sense of self is fractured, every thought, emotion, word, and action flows from distortion. Stress takes root. Living unfolds in a state of persistent imbalance. And our innate potential diminishes. The potential for healing, the potential for effective living in every area. Our relationships are not the way we want them to be. Our outcomes in life are not the way we want them to be. Our body pays the price for it. All years of life is not the way we want it to be. But I'm saying it's the same root for all the branches. All the branches could be fruitful if we just get the root. What's the root? What is the root? Our sense of identity, our sense of self, which creates, out of which arises our state of being, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. That is what we want to get right. How does it translate into disease? How does this state translate? It happens through the central nervous system, which is how we experience life. Life is defined by experience. Experience is what enriches this whole journey. And that whole experience is determined by our central nervous system. Our central nervous system is the brain and the whole network of nerves that run through our bodies. It's a marvelous system. Just that system, how it's designed alone, tells us that there is an intelligence that's way beyond biology, that's running everything. And we just need to let it flow as it's naturally designed to. So here's how it is. This is how it happens. When there is this inner conflict between our two states, when we have adopted doing and doing rather than being, rather than let doing come from being, which is effortless and more efficient and effective, we substitute being for just doing. But that's how we've been taught. So this is how it works. And I'm just simplifying it. I'm just giving us the perspective. The central nervous system extends into the autonomic system, which is what controls all bodily functions, right down to the cellular level. And that system has two branches. The two branches are consistent with which side of our identity configures our life, configures our minds and our hearts. The sympathetic nervous system is activated when there is a stress response. This is what they call the fight, flight, freeze response that is activated when there is chronic stress. All the medical literature today tells us that chronic stress promotes oxidation, systemic inflammation, a whole complex of a cascade of things that go down. That's the root of all chronic lifestyle disease. There is no lifestyle disease that develops that does not grow out of the seedbed of chronic inflammation, systemic oxidation. And so if you did your research, you'll see that this is just how it happens. This is not a bad thing. The sympathetic nervous system, you can remember that to be stress because they're both S, stress and sympathetic. This is to help us. This is part of our survival mechanism. This is what kicks in when there's an emergency. The problem is that this is chronically running. This is constantly in overdrive. Research in neuroscience tells us that even when people are sleeping, this is still in overdrive. Some people, in fact, many people, when they're sleeping, this is still in overdrive. And so, which is why it's one of the biggest problems that's creating chronic degenerative conditions is a lack of restful sleep. Because part of it is that this system is still running with a lot of people, even though they're sleeping. So we don't get truly restful sleep. But this sympathetic system, it's only supposed to come in when there's an emergency, but when it's running all the time, it starts a spiral down that ends up leading to all of these chronic lifestyle diseases that we know that's becoming increasing. It's because we are living, like the statistics say, 60 to 80%, we're living in this state all the time. The second branch of it is the parasympathetic system. This one deals with healing and recovery. And this happens when the mind and the body finds that harmony and balance because the state of mind and the state of heart, the condition of the soul is in a harmonious place. There is more peace and harmony and coherence. There is more gratitude and there is more positive outlooks when there is more, when we're living on the positive side of life. To simplify it, the parasympathetic system becomes more dominant. And when that happens, that mind-body harmony is restored, homeostasis. All the biological functions begin to coordinate and upregulate, and the healing. This is what system overtakes. With spontaneous healing, this becomes dominant. And the body simply begins to repair itself. You see, it takes a little while to wrap our minds around it. We do not need to know how to heal the body. Healing is 100% internal. Nothing external is needed. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that if you're sick, that because unless we're living a perfect life, and we know that we're not, we need to take external things to support the process. But not to think that these external things are doing anything to heal. We are trying to remove the resistance. We are trying to remove the hindrances. We are trying to open back the flow to be free. But the body, because it's holistic design, it will repair itself if we can bring the balance back and bring things back in order. The central nervous system is regulated by brainwave activity, which is a reflection of our state of mind. Our state of mind is a reflection of our state of being. Our state of being is a reflection of our sense of self, or our sense of identity. But our state of mind, when we know which system is dominant, we measure brainwaves activity. How do brainwaves? That's the language, electrical brainwaves. We hook you up to an EEG and we measure the brainwaves and we know how the body is functioning based on that. Why? Because the central nervous system, which is running the whole show, how it runs that, how regulated it is, depends on this brainwave activity. So when our inner state is harmonious, positive frequencies, all thoughts and emotions are frequencies, they're vibrations. When it's harmonious, love, peace, joy, gratitude, the brainwave activity, it shifts the autonomic nervous system into parasympathetic dominance. What happens? Everything starts to restore, everything comes back into the balance, the body starts to repair. That's natural. But when our inner state is defined by negative frequencies, there's fear, there's worry, there's resentment, there's anger, there's anxiety, there's suppressed traumas. Those are the frequencies that's interrupting harmonious brainwave activity. And it shifts the autonomic nervous system into sympathetic dominance. Do you understand that disease don't happen to us, it happens through us by our state of mind, the condition of our soul, based on our state of being, emanating from our sense of who we are. We have to really step back, take a deep breath, and look and start to examine self. Don't look on the outside. Don't think that we are victims. We are the ones that's very much contributing to the process. We just may not have understood the full picture. And so, what's the solution? Restoring that inner alignment, which is the source of all healing. You're talking about we need to have pure thoughts, pleasant emotions, positive words, and consistent action so that how we think, how we feel, and how we speak and how we act is one and the same. It's frequency, is one frequency, it's alignment. That's a tall order. But that dissolves the inner conflict. It harmonizes brainwave activity. It restores that natural harmony between mind and body, that synergy. And when that happens, all biological systems upregulate, they come into balance, and the body just does what it will do. It keeps running itself, repairing itself, regenerating itself. It just repairs everything. And so, cultivating that state of being, that alignment for harmony, we got to engage spiritually. We got to start to engage practices. Mentally, we have to start developing new mindsets. Emotionally, we have to start to cultivate a different state of heart and mind. We have to develop what they call heart-mind coherence. These are practices of ways of being that helps us to emerge into our true self and identity. But a lot of people are on this journey, and a lot of people find it difficult physically, just physically alone. Talking about eating healthy, exercising, we're talking about engaging in physical habits. That alone, people trip up on that alone. Forget the emotional, mental, and spiritual. We just fight up and we struggle just to do the physical part right. And I'll tell you, until we get the physical part right, believe me, the rest is a struggle. Because the easiest part of all of it is to get the physical part right. But just so we can understand where our state of mind is, where our mindset has been conditioned, is that we know what we should and shouldn't do. We have been planning to make changes to improve our physical well-being. We start, we make New Year's resolutions, we make all these, and we fall back. And it's because we need to have some other pieces in place so we can put the whole together. But it does start from the outside in. Life flows from the inside out. But to get from the inside out, we must take governance over the outside. Our physical senses cannot be what defines our state of mind. But for us to get over that hurdle, it starts by taking governance over our physical well-being. And it will just start simply by, we've been planning to get up to exercise, we've been planning to get up earlier and not hit the snooze button, we've been planning to change our diets, we've been planning to get more rest. We just start with that. And the more we do it, we're actually beginning to create more new neural networks. We're dismantling old networks and we're creating new neural networks in the brain. We are beginning the process, but it takes what? It takes discipline. But here's what may not be given to us for us to be motivated to do it. Is for us to see the picture of what comes out when we begin this journey, here's what it looks like on the other side of the river. And if you want, now that is so beautiful that you're going to want to engage the journey because it's worth it. It's what we're all chasing life for. All that we hope for on the other side of the river, it begins with this journey. But we know that's a tall order. To get this in place, what if there was a way that we can get our brainwave activity to reflect a state of mind that is harmonious? What do you think would happen? We didn't get to go through all this stuff. We don't have pure thoughts and pleasant emotions. We're working on it. It'll take a while because it's a journey of life, but we're working on it and we're committing ourselves to it. But what if there was a way that we can bring our brainwave activity to resemble being in that state? Well, what would happen? The synchrony between mind and body will emerge. The parasympathetic system would become more dominant. And what happens? The flow just begins to flow. You don't have to know how to do this. You don't have to make it happen. You have to know how to just become aligned. That's all we need to do. You don't have to become aligned. But that alignment is reflected in our state of mind. That state of mind is reflected in our brainwave activity. What if we can get our brainwave activity to resemble a mind that is in harmony? That is the technology. That is the discovery that I want to share with you. There's this gentleman that is a software engineer, a brilliant man. His name is Jay Dhaliwal. He set out on a quest to save his mother, who had multiple sclerosis for many years, decades. And he grew up watching her deteriorate. And he became very successful. He had all the wealth that anybody could dream of. And he went searching the world to find a solution for her neurodegenerative condition. After years of that, to make a long story short, he, in his years of neuroscientific research and discovery for a solution for his mother, he discovered something of how the mind and the body talks to each other through brainwave activity. After inquiring with all the best of the minds in neuroscience as to how the mind and the body communicate and what would cause the interruptions, and they're still unclear of how that happens. We still don't know a lot about the brain because we have 100 billion neurons, but only 15% of them actually are firing. Most of our brain doesn't really, we only use, they say, 10% of our minds because most of the neurons, we don't know how to even tap in to activate them. But I'll tell you what, the more we engage in our spiritual well-being is the more we actually turn on more and more of those neurons. That's part of the wonder of it. Anyway, his discovery led him to create a technology that is so simple. It has no medicine, no ingredients, no external frequencies, no devices, no pills, no potions, completely clean. It taps into the human technology. It taps into what is inherently designed in the human system. And it helps to remove the static. It helps to streamline the noise so that what's already built in will flow freely. How does it do it? It helps to take our brain waves, which is a reflection of our state of mind, which governs how the central nervous system runs the body, and it brings it right back into harmony, all without any ingredients or any medicines. How does it do it? By tapping in to the body's own system and tuning it back to its normal balance. Tuning the body's mind, brains that run in everything, tuning it back into its natural balance. Let me show you a 2-minute video where he demonstrates how the technology works. He calls it vibrotactile trigger technology.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jay Dhaliwal. I'm the CEO and founder of Vox Life and the creator of Vox Life HPT. Today, I want to talk to you about our Harmony Neuro Patch. And what this product does is actually stimulates receptors on our skin, sending a neurosignal to our brain to help it reach homeostasis. This is the only product in the world that relies on the neurohaptic system that every single one of us has to optimize our neurology and optimize our health. Today, with the help of Dr. Mark DeBrincat, our VP of Clinical Strategy, we're going to be using an FDA-cleared 19-channel EEG headset, as well as FDA-cleared software to visualize, record, and show the impact that our technology has on our neurology and our brains to help it reach optimal performance. What we want to show today is how the Harmony Neuro Patch helps that dysregulated yellow, blue, and red colors in the brain maps transform into that healthy green homeostasis neurology that is the foundation of health and wellness. So what we're looking at right now is a neurological QEEG output of Mike's limbic system. The 19 channels are reading over 60,000 brainwaves a second and generating an output of neurofunction and brainwaves. What we want to see now is where that suboptimal red and yellow colors are. We want to see them turning as much as possible to a healthy green with the application of our HPT patch. So we've applied the patch now to Mike's arm, and within 10 seconds, you're seeing that predominant yellow and red become predominantly green. Just for clarification, ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing in the world that has this output at this rate of speed without drugs, without chemicals, without electricity. That's the power of Vox HPT. So when we see a healthy green neurology, what we're looking at is a brain and a mind in homeostasis. It is operating in its optimal function. And this is so important. And this is why it's so important. So Vox Life HPT, as we demonstrated with our neuro patch, helps the central nervous system reach homeostasis in our neurology. And the reason this is so important for overall wellness and health is that neurology is the top of the pyramid of our physiological health and wellness paradigm. First is neurology at the very top, then there's chemistry, then there's biology, then there's physics and mechanics. Neurology will have an impact all the way through our entire physiology. Healthy neurology, healthy body, better wellness.
The technology is based on Nobel Prize research that goes back as far as 1939 and more recent research. And so Superpatch, as the company is called, and the technology, the vibrotactile technology, is based on research that's already there and what Jay Dhaliwal has been able to do through his neuroscientific research has been able to connect the dots. And I'll explain that to you. I'll just give you an idea of how this is able to happen. How is it that you can just stick a simple patch anywhere on your body, and it's going to send a signal to your brain to bring the brainwave activity back into more harmonious, coherent function. Now, for those of you who may not be aware, that EEG test that he just did with what is now called the Liberty Patch, that is what, just to achieve that, just for a human being to have that happen is an almost impossibility, because it takes years of training your mind, like monks who may be meditating in a monastery for many years. It takes that type of mental control to have that kind of coherence. The average person, our minds are restless and incoherent. That is the normal baseline for most of us, those of you who might have been exposed to EEGs. And indeed, red and yellow is always indicative of that restless state. That's why people say we don't hold attention based on the experts for more than 10 seconds. We can't stay focused. Our minds are always all over the place. When we try to meditate, when we are sitting in time of prayer, we find these things difficult because our minds are always restless. And that's because of more of sympathetic dominance. That's the stress, that's part of the stress response. So just to even have that happen is remarkable all in itself. Now, how is that possible that just that can create that type of activity? Well, first of all, just remember, let's stay clear that brain waves are a reflection of our state of mind. And You can see all the research is there is that brainwave activity is a reflection of our state of mind. If we change our state of mind, like through meditation, if we were to get into a delta state or even a theta state of meditation, research tells us that cortisol levels will drop, immune modulation is going to increase just by doing that. In fact, neuroscience research has even shown us that just having that sense of gratitude, having an experience where you feel that heartfelt sense of overflowing gratitude in your heart. When they hook people up to these monitors, and then during that state, the body dumps the oxytocin into our bloodstream. And it upregulates our systems, it downregulates, and it starts to shift the body into parasympathetic dominance. And it happens, and if we maintain it for a couple of days, it shifts all over completely. So I'm just saying that all the research is there is that these brainwave activity is always about the state of our mind. And so based on the Nobel Prize research, back in 1939, they discovered that every cell in the human body sends and receives electromagnetic vibrations and frequencies. Well, quantum science today tells us that all matter in the universe has a vibrational signature. Everything has a vibrational signature. Well, we just have devices that now can detect it. We may not have had that 50 years ago. And then in more recent times, two Nobel Prize laureates discovered that embedded in the sensory neurons in the skin are particular, what they call piezoelectric channels, ion channels that anything that touches the skin, it will send, we know it sends a signal to the brain, but what they discovered is that these ion channels, they actually convert the vibration, the texture and temperature into electrical signals that the brain interprets the information. It is how the information is interpreted by the brain as to what is touching the skin. This is why Braille, blind people can use Braille, and that's why Braille works for blind persons. And so a way to understand it is if we look at a QR code that just has patterns on it, arranged in different, these dots arranged in different patterns. This is a QR code of my website. If you were to point the camera at it, the camera will take a snapshot and it would convert this visual pattern into digital data or digital signals, and it would unlock whatever that pattern represents. In a very similar way, Superpatch, no ingredients, just a tactile pattern. These specialized ionic receptors in the skin, it detects the vibration of the pattern on the patch and it transmits a neurological signal to the brain, and it synchronizes brainwave activities of various networks. Different patterns will harmonize different networks. To understand that simply is like if you have two tuning forks of the same pitch. If you hit one, the other one will just automatically vibrate because it's at the same pitch. If your neural network in the brain, for example, that regulates the immune system, and that network, the brain waves of that network is out of harmony because of stress responses, and so there's not optimal immune function. If you stick on the defend patch, which is for the neural network of that responsible for the immune system, you stick that patch on, it sends a signal right to that network to bring those waves right back into harmony. What's the result? The immune system now upregulates, back up, it's now reset to its normal natural function, which is its highest function. That's incredible. What's it used? What's it tapping into? Is it creating the technology? The technology is already built in. It's built into the skin. The skin has technology built into it. It reads the pattern, sends a signal. What's unique and what's proprietary to the Superpatch company is that after 15 years of research and development, they have been able to decode what pattern will send what frequency to harmonize the brain waves in particular areas of the brain to optimize function. Incredible. The safest, the cleanest, the most powerful thing I've come across in 25 years. Why I love this so much is because it's tapping into the natural human design. It's just simply removing the static so that you can become tuned right on the dial without the static, and so the flow just happens naturally. And so when we understand that every function in the human body, whether it is we're breathing, walking, brushing our teeth, everything has a neural network. Everything has a neural program that determines how it will function. And whenever it's out of balance, function becomes diminished. And all the patches are doing is sending a signal to bring it back into harmony. So what is naturally built in and woven into the human design just naturally takes place. There's nothing more natural, nothing more potent, and nothing safer than I've ever seen come across than this. So vibrotactile technology today has now become peer-reviewed and published science. It is published in some of the major journals around the world, the medical journals, the International Journal of Family Medicine and Healthcare, the International Journal of Research on Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation. This is nothing that's experimental. This is something that's now that's bona fide, credible science and research, and it's now being accepted. In fact, Superpatch is now being invited to present their groundbreaking technology at the major global symposiums where all the medical experts come together to advance healthcare. And no one has ever seen anything like it. In fact, there is nothing. This has been the greatest discovery in wellness to date, where you can bring the brain, which runs the whole physiological show. And by the way, not just our physiology, our psychology, because the brain processes both thoughts and emotions as well as our biological functions. So when we bring the brain systems into more harmony, the brainwave activity to resemble a state of mind that is more harmonious, it doesn't only enhance physiological function, it begins to enhance psychological function. That is transformative. If we understand what I just said, that is very transformative. So this is unlocking the potential that already exists within simply through the power of touch. And let me tell you, tactile technology, sometimes we see it, sometimes we do it ourselves. Sometimes you may have experienced it yourself. You may be feeling down, feeling low, going through a low time, and a friend or a family member comes up to you and looks you in the eye and doesn't even say a word and just put a comforting hand on your shoulder, and right away you start to feel a sense of relief. You start to feel a sense of support. That's actually a biological response. That's tactile. That's vibrotactile. That's vibration through touch. Sometimes it happens with just vibration through words. We say somebody's feeling a particular way, and you say just the right thing, and they feel better. That's vibration through words. That's a biological response. This is through touch. A pattern is clean. So when the mind and the body are harmonized through brainwave synchronization, the mind becomes more orderly, biological systems become coordinated, and this reestablishes the homeostasis. This optimizes the body's self-regulating capacity. And so today, Superpatch has developed 14 revolutionary targeted solutions to address the most common needs in health, wellness, and performance. When it comes to mobility, pain, performance, stress, immune system, sleep, mental clarity, energy, mood, focus, healthy skin, metabolism, habit control, passion, different things that are affecting all of our lives. And so since I've started using these for myself, my wife uses it, we have been thoroughly impressed with it. But in sharing it with people and working with people, and what I'm seeing this is doing, there is no question in my mind that what the very developer, Jay Dhaliwal, and the CEO of the company has said, I have completely see eye to eye with him when he says this is going to change the whole paradigm of wellness and how healthcare is done in the future. Absolutely, I see it. Why? Because it's tapping into the most powerful healing system in the world, which is your own built-in mechanism. It's just streamlining it. It's just bringing it back online to function at its best. A year ago, just say this as it pops into my mind, a year ago, or a little bit more than a year ago, I went for my regular checkup with my doctor, and the doctor discovered that there was a growth on my thyroid. And I didn't even know it was there. And when she did an ultrasound and said it's a 9 millimeter growth, well, a 9 millimeter growth on the thyroid is a big growth for the size of the thyroid gland. And when she palpated it, I started to cough. Prior to that, I didn't even recognize it was there. She said, we need to do a biopsy just to make sure that there are no abnormal cells. I refused it. And she said, well, let's do it in 3 months. I went back, I think maybe 7 months or thereabouts later. And she did the test again and it was gone. Well, when I discovered it, the very next month, I started using super patches. I wore a number of the patches. In 7 months when I went back, she checked and there was all my markers. The reason why she did the ultrasound and tested the thyroid in the first place is that my thyroid markers in my blood work was out of balance. And so caused her to check it. She felt a lump, did an ultrasound. Oh, you have a growth there. Okay, interesting. Now it's gone. My question to her, what do you think happened? She said, well, I can't explain it. I don't know it. Your readings with your blood work is normal. The growth is gone. She said, sometimes these things appear, sometimes they disappear. We can't explain it. Well, let me tell you, the body just knows what it has to do. Nobody needs to tell the body what needs to be fixed. What we need to do is bring the body back into its balance. Let the mind and body find as harmonious a synergy as possible. And what will happen is that anything that is out of balance, the body will start to repair it in its own way, based on its own intelligence, based on your own pre-existing imbalances. So these are mind-body solutions that the world needs. I am so passionate about this and excited about it that I really do think that everybody ought to be using these things. You don't need to have a problem to use it. You can be proactive and use it just to have your mind and body in synergy. There are a couple of them you can use that just keeps your immune system running well, your autonomic nervous system balanced, and your body's biological systems coordinated. And it helps to give you that protection. It helps to give you that balance. It helps to keep you ahead of the game. And then if you have any of the other symptoms, you could help to use that to streamline it. So this is enhancing physical and mental well-being. I've never come across anything that is as safe and is as effective. It's non-invasive. There is no contraindications because there's zero ingredients. There's no frequencies. People keep asking, what about the frequency? It does not emit any frequencies. It just has a tactile pattern, and anything that touches your skin will send a signal to the brain. The pattern just corresponds with a particular signal that relates to a particular area of the brain that needs balance. So let's say, for example, the neural network in your brain that is responsible for pain management. If that was optimally functioning, if you put on the patch, it's not going to do anything for you because it's already optimal. If it's not, it's going to optimize it so your body will manage pain far more efficiently. Things like that. So and the thing is about it, it's safe for children. You have a child that's 2 years old, 3 years old, and they have the flu, you can use it. Absolutely safe. You have implants, medical implants, absolutely safe. They're effective. They work almost immediately because it's straight from brain to body. It's just that everybody is different and everybody have different pre-existing imbalances. And so what's most important is that they're accessibly priced for just about anybody. So when you synchronize these patches together, use them together, you can get even greater efficacy in how it's going to enhance that mind-body synergy. And so I want to encourage you to consider this as you look at examining your lives and your sense of who you are, your sense of identity, your cultivating a harmonious state of being. These super patches are a perfect bridge because it is bridging that mind-body balance. That doesn't just make your body work better, but your mind. Because what happens is that the body, the brain, through what they call neuroplasticity, begins to rewire and reorganize itself as you continue to wear them over time to this new balance. because it has been wired to the old balance of stress. As it begins to rewire itself to the new balance from continuous use of the patches, that is where the magic really begins to happen. Your whole sense of well-being, your disposition, your mental clarity, your decision making, your response to life, it just starts shifting. Why? Because you have a more orderly functioning brain and a more orderly functioning mind. These are very simple to use. You don't have to consider about with meals and without meals and particular times. And you can stick them pretty much anywhere on your body. They've been tested to be safe, and just peel it, stick it on, and you begin to live better. You couldn't get easier than that. There's a scientific advisory board that makes the real world application. They're all involved with the research and development in terms of advancing it and bringing it to the world in terms of application. And so Superpatch provides all that we need to be able to have the confidence in their compliance, their efficacy, they're FDA registered, and they're safe. And so I want to encourage you as you consider getting aligned in your life so you can unlock that potential that we have within, to consider looking at super patches. We have a Facebook page that have thousands of testimonies, people all over the world that's doing it. I have integrated this into my life as I continue my journey, and I'll tell you, it is transformative. Jay Dhaliwal, the CEO, his vision is he wants to impact the world because he has discovered something that has never been done and that the world needs. I certainly agree. It fits in with my own personal passion, which is why I have joined his mission. And I'm inviting everybody who I know to join this mission. Why? Start with yourself. Forget about the mission. Start with your own life. Why? You want to get aligned. This is not just physicality. This is about getting your life, up-leveling your life across the board. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, socially, right across. This is a bridge to take us there. This is wearable self-care. And that is the future. The future is not to depend on healthcare, depend on self-care. Be responsible for it. Superpatch has how you can access these. The easiest way to access it is to become part of the global community, what Superpatch calls a blue ocean business for entrepreneurs. The business may not be for you, but I invite people to do it because it makes it accessible in terms of the cost. When you're a part of the community, you can get it at a better cost. Why? Because it's something you want to make part of your lifestyle. And so I say to people, you want to get the best price. These retail, this technology, it retails only for $60. Of course, I'm talking US dollars. And it's available from nowhere else except Superpatch and its affiliates, of which I am one. And perhaps you were here, you were invited onto the call by one. But that's the only way it's available, and it's $60 for a 4-week supply. They all are one price. They all are. I want to encourage you just to try it for yourself. Anyone that you think is thick, and you'll see, experience it. But experience it along with examining your life to bring it in a line as well, because it will support, it bridges that. At the wholesale price of it is $45 for the wholesale. And to become a lifetime member, where you can access it at the wholesale price, it costs less than the wholesale price to become a member. And so I say to people, become a member and start using it. Share it with your family, and you'll see how this thing will begin to impact your life. If you have a physical issue that you want to help to improve, this is a good way to go. Clean, without, the world is looking for help without medication, without drugs, without all the side effects, without the chemicals, without the toxicity. And this is the way to do it. And so you can become part of the community, access it at the better price, and start to use it as you begin to consider aligning your life. Right. And so with that, I want to say thank you for taking the time for being on the call tonight and allowing me to be able to share this information with you. The first part of it, before I talked about the technology, that part of it, I really want you to consider that, because to me, that is really what's, I would say, most important. The patches, the technology, because it taps in to what is inherently built into us, it becomes a perfect fit for that journey of a light in your life. It becomes a perfect fit for that. And then we could all do with feeling better, with having more energy and living at a higher level of vibrancy. We all could do with that better. And so tomorrow evening at 6:30, for those of you who might be interested and wanted to explore what it is that Superpatch offers in terms of this blue ocean opportunity for entrepreneurs. It's called Blue Ocean because there's nothing else that's like it. It's as unique as the technology is unique, of how you can become a lifetime member and just start using it if you wanted to. And then you have the option to engage in the economic model if you so choose to, if you're looking to improve your financial position. For those of you who are interested in that, reach out to me, reach out to one of our partners, and you can get the link for that. That's tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock, 6:30, rather. And otherwise, if you're not interested in that, which is fine, I want to encourage you. Look at your life, and if you want a bridge that helps you to get into that alignment, Superpatch is a wonderful. In fact, it's the only option I know that helps to bridge that gap and make it more accessible. And so, with that, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time, for being on, giving me the opportunity to share with you. And I trust that you would have heard something that will make a difference in your life to take it to the next level. So, God bless you. Have a great week ahead of you. And we'll see you perhaps tomorrow or on the next rounds. Good night, everyone.